The sun sets in heaven, and returning by the north to proceed towards the east is conducted so as to enter by that gate and illuminate the face of heaven. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio. And as always, we thank all of you for taking the time to join us this evening. It has been a long time coming, but we have finally made it to the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries, which is something that is close to my heart. And for those that have followed my work, you know that my ninth book, The Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch, is specific to this portion of the Book of Enoch. So very excited to be here and looking forward to getting into this with Rob Skiba. Rob, are you there, brother?
I am here. How are you, Zen?
Doing all right, man. It's interesting to me that we just heard in the news feed how they admit to this being engineered from this bat virus and then accidentally released, of course, into the Wuhan province there in China. It seems like, they're starting to spill the beans on what really kind of happened with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting crazy.
hmm And all the people that have, um, made fun of and judged and condemned anybody that would speak in any manner of any government agency actually engineering a virus and then releasing it into the public accidentally, of course, but
Yeah.
um, yeah. So yeah, people are being forced to really re-examine all that they thought they knew of as truth, and some of those conspiracy theories may actually be real.
Well, I mean, it certainly looks that way. I was on a show on the Holy Hand Grenade is the YouTube channel. Uh,
Oh wow.
Ian Chadwick and Aaron Sampson, and he played a clip from I believe the movie was Resident Evil. I have never seen it, but in the clip it showed like a round table. It was a long rectangular table of elite, sitting there saying, "Hey, listen, the way things are going right now, it's the whole sustainable development, right? Everything's not sustainable with this many people and global warming and blah blah blah." And so, our plan is to go underground and we will engineer an apocalypse that will wipe everybody out, and then we'll come up,
Right.
and have a clean slate. And
hmm
the person at the other end of the table is like, "Well, how do you propose to do this?" And he said, "Well, we're going to release the T virus, whatever that was." And they
hmm
showed a thing on basically they're going to release a virus that's going to wipe out everybody and mess up everything, and they'll wait it out underground for a while we kill each other off in starvation and whatever, after they collapse the economy, and
Right.
then they'll come up and take over in a nice clean world with no people.
Right.
And I was like, I'm watching this clip, I'm going, wow,
Yeah.
is this the script that they're following or what?
Right. And as crazy as that sounds, Satan seems to have convinced the elite that there are just too many people on the earth, and for some reason, the earth is too small to sustain a population of this size, and that it's their duty, the whole divine right of kings, it's their duty to implement some kind of measure to ensure that the earth can make it.
Yeah, the thing is, I do a lot of traveling, or did before the lockdown, and all you have to do is fly over this country.
Exactly.
Just do it one time.
Exactly.
Look out the window.
Right.
If you live in a city like New York or Los Angeles or someplace like that, it's real easy to. I mean, I can't even stand being in either of those cities for very long.
Me either.
Just being stuck in traffic or out on the streets with people everywhere. It's
Right.
really if you live in that environment, it's really easy to say, "Oh my God, this place is overcrowded," like the
Right.
world is overcrowded. But all you gotta do is like 50 miles out from there, and
Exactly.
you're gonna
Yeah.
find a lot of land. If you fly over the country, there's just a ton of land, empty space out there, and
Right.
I don't remember. I think it was something like you could put the entire population of the world, I believe, in Texas and still have like 2 feet all around you, something like that. I
Hmm.
forget. I forget what it was, but it's not. Look, he said, "Be fruitful and multiply." He built this place and made it big enough for everybody. Whether you think it's a 25,000 mile circumference ball or a 60,000 mile circumference circle, either way,
Right.
it's a
Right.
huge place, well able to accommodate, you know, the commandment to be fruitful and multiply.
Hmm.
So yeah, it is totally a satanic lie.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even like the whole thing with peak oil a few years back, and how we were going to run out of oil and all of that. They That was another engineered lie. But yeah, exactly what you said, man. You fly over the country, especially here in the United States as well. I mean, you have of all the cities that are lined up on the coasts of the United States, like one big concrete jungle from Florida up to New York on the seaboard. But once you start moving west, I mean, there's just massive gaps and huge spaces of rural land and places where there's no inhabitants, especially when you get near the Grand Canyon and that rift that runs from Texas all the way up through Montana and Seattle and all that. I mean, just massive spaces of where there's no people at all. And yeah, but still somehow, again, Satan has convinced the elite that, with the Georgia Guidestones, that they have to reduce the population from 7 billion, I guess, is what it is now, to
500 million,
500,000.
500
Yeah,
million.
500 million. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just,
Well,
yeah, it's crazy.
they'll say, yeah, there's a lot of land out there, but it's not. They'll say it's not livable land. It doesn't have water or it doesn't have whatever. And yet you could just Google, turning the Sahara into an oasis or something
Hmm.
like that. They figured out all kinds of with the technology we have today, uh, irrigation platforms and ways of rejuvenating even deserts,
Right.
into an oasis.
Right.
So the land can be rejuvenated, water can be harvested. I mean, it's not an uninhabitable you know uh, land. I mean,
Right.
he made this place to be livable. So
Yeah, absolutely.
although I'll tell you, man, I'm trying to do this gardening thing. Man,
Yeah.
I don't have a green thumb, man. Like, I could get the seedlings going and they look
Uh-huh.
fantastic, but like shortly after that, I don't know if I'm watering it too much, not fertilizing it enough, fertilizing too much sun. Geez, I don't know, man. But I went out and looked at them today. I'm like, oh boy, that doesn't look good. So,
Mm.
like a couple days ago, everything looked fantastic. Today, I'm like, oh no. So,
Well,
I don't know, man. I gotta figure this. I definitely don't have a green thumb, man. Because even
it's
indoor plants, I'm like,
yeah,
they're good for a couple of months, and then I'm like, geez, I don't know if I water too much or not enough, or I don't know.
yeah. You have to be really careful, and then all the plants are different. They certain amounts of water and also different soil types, and so all of that really needs to be decided upon even before you decide planting, because they need different kind of environments, even the pH of the soil, whether it's like dark soil or clay or sandy soil. All of that makes a difference. And then the things with like the wood chips and
Yeah.
pine straw and all of that. I mean, th- they're temperamental, but if you get them in the right environment and the right soil, that goes a long ways for allowing them to really be able to come up. And
Well,
but again, I am no expert at all either. So,
yeah.
but I know they're particular.
Yeah. You know, I'm really concerned right now because I've seen a bunch of videos over the last week, probably since last time we talked, uh, where farmers are being told to like stop their shipments. Like they're dumping huge truckloads of milk in
Right.
like
I've seen
fields
that.
of
Yeah.
onions, and they're being told to sell their land, and part of it was because the restaurants and stuff, because of social distancing and whatnot,
Uh-huh.
aren't ordering as much, and some have to close and whatnot. So some of their normal places of distribution aren't, it's not meeting the demand, right? So
Yeah.
but I'm like, dude, like, necessity is the mother of invention. The only conclusion
Hmm.
you can come up with is dumping it. You freaking
You're
moron!
right.
It's
Come
like,
on. Yeah.
look,
There's
the people,
homeless.
whether or not the businesses are open, the people that used to eat there still need to eat. They still
Yeah.
need to drink.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
I mean, I
Yeah.
can
That's
appreciate
crazy.
some of the predicaments farmers find themselves in, but for crying out loud, come on, man! Like, start a farmers market, put lines in the dirt 6 feet apart or whatever. But like
Right.
dumping it, I mean, that is not a solution. How anybody
No.
in their right mind thinks that that's a reasonable solution? I mean, it proves this
Yeah.
whole place is brain dead, man. I'm like,
Right. Right.
they're gonna create a famine. And,
Right.
and now
Exactly.
I hear they're trying to ban seeds and stuff from being sold to different places, and I'm like, get it while you can. You know,
Yeah.
around
Heirloom.
here, Home Depot and Sprouts are two places around here that still have lots of seeds that you can buy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
But I mean, that tells me that there's an agenda over and above what we already believe regarding
Right.
the
Right.
coronavirus. Is the fact that they're trying to withhold seeds from people being able to plant. They're telling farmers to dump the stuff that they have, and ordering them to sell their businesses and
Hmm.
whatever, or they may have to just to survive. But it's like, come on, farmers, like, we need you. you know
Right. Exactly.
think
Yeah.
outside the freaking box. Okay, so the
Right.
restaurants aren't ordering. Okay, there's got to be someplace else that you can sell it, and there's plenty of people willing to buy it. So
Hmm.
dumping it is not a solution, people.
Right. Right. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense at all. But I'm fully in agreement with you with regard to, they have the large industrial farms where they're trying to mass produce, and it's food that is, the genetically modified crops. And then they are also buying out all the little or the smaller organic farms. And so, corner the market on water and food and of providing that stuff for not just restaurants but also the people in general. I mean, that whole movie of Soylent Green
Right.
comes to mind with what they are trying to do, even with the aborted fetal tissue as a food additive, how they're trying to get us to be involved in abominations such as that. I mean, it's twisted the mindset of these people, and what they are just what they're trying to do is just it doesn't make sense. It's not rational to the regular normal person, but then these people are schizophrenic, and have a deeper, darker agenda and are at spiritual war with us on levels that we are not able to comprehend. And that's the difficulty for people in trying to grasp what's really going on in the world. Because, again, why would you add aborted fetal tissue as a food additive? Um, it just does not make any sense.
Yeah. No, not at all. On another note, since our last show, uh, um, one of our moderators, Kevin Stoll,
Hmm.
sent me a PDF of a book by Gustav Davidson called A Dictionary of Angels, including the Fallen Angels.
Oh, wow.
And it
That
was,
is cool.
yeah, it was published in 1967, apparently. But it has the a whole, I mean, it's like 400 pages long.
Wow.
And it appears that, let me see if I can fast forward here. I'm showing it on the screen. If anybody, maybe I'll zoom in a bit here. Oops, I zoom out. Try it the other way. There we go. Um, and it has, it looks like an index here, or no, it's alphabetical order. So it starts with Albiel, an angel in the service of the archangel Michael. and then it gives references wisdom of the Chaldeans. So, it has like Ariel, line of God, the name of an angel found inscribed in on an Ophitic Gnostic amulet alongside the name of the god Aldelboth. So,
Wow.
like, it gives all the. I'll put the link in the Skype for you, and I'll drop the link in the chat room for everybody else.
Gustav, what was his name again?
Let me scroll back to the first page. It's called A Dictionary of Angels, Including the Fallen Angels by
Okay.
Gustav Gustav Davidson.
Okay.
Big shout out to Kevin. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Very cool resource. I'll post the link in the chat room for people. Oops, can't do that. Sorry, that's a link to my computer. I have to go look and see the link that Kevin sent me. Or Kevin, he's in the chat room. Kevin, maybe if you can post the link in there for everybody, they can download it too.
Yeah, very cool. I'm gonna check that out for sure.
That's gonna be a handy resource. 415
yeah,
pages.
yeah, somebody's done their research on it. I'm glad. Yeah, somebody's done that. Fascinating. Well, anything else that you want to get into before we move into the actual text? What really quickly? What are you trying to grow? Just specifically like the salad items, the herb garden, or
Yeah,
are you
a
going
little bit
full
of.
out?
I'm pretty much full out. I mean, anything that
Yeah.
I would like normally eat with a meal
Uh-huh.
or
Yeah.
a snack or something. So I mean, yeah, your typical salad stuff. But
Right.
like I planted a nectarine tree today.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
So and some blueberries and stuff. So fruits and veggies. Kind of the
Yeah.
usual. But
Yeah.
but I got to get them past the because we started in the little. They give you these little growing trays. And it's got like
Mhm.
this tablet in there that expands like 3 times its volume. Add water to it and you plant the seed in there, and that's like really cool because within like a week, stuff sprouts up. It'd be like 2 or 3 inches sticking up over the top after it's a very short period of time.
Right.
And so then you take it from there, and what I've been doing is I took it from those are like plastic trays, took them out of there and put them in these biodegradable cardboard cups
Yes.
that theoretically you could just plant the cup in the ground
In
and
the ground. Yeah.
it rots or does whatever it does and turns into
Right.
dirt and so everything's in the cup stage right now, and everything's a good 2 to 3, 4, 5 inches tall in terms of growth, but
Yeah.
and what do I know? I don't know. I mean, they seem like okay. They're about ready. I haven't planted them in the ground or in the raised beds or any pots or anything yet. They're just still in those.
Mhm.
But I have a feeling like they weren't used to the sun, and even though
Oh, it'll burn them really quick.
yeah, I mean
Yeah, the
heat
sun.
wise, it's not terribly hot here yet, but
Yeah.
I think the UV probably just screwed them.
Fried
So,
them. Yeah.
but I'm like, well, what do they do in life? Like in real life, they're I mean, they have to grow in real life out in the
Right. Right.
is uh, so I mean that's what we're doing with that. But the only other thing I want to say is thank you to our supporters. Kind of put out a SOS last week, and a number of people came through and helped us
That's
out.
great.
So
Praise God.
at least our bills are good good to go this month.
Awesome.
And so huge. I know times are tough for everybody, so I know sometimes it can be a stretch to help somebody else out. So I certainly appreciate everything people have done for us before this, but really appreciate what people are doing now because we can use all the support we can get because this is what we do for a living, and YouTube isn't paying the bills. I'll tell you that much. I mean, we used to average probably somewhere in the ballpark of $2,000 a month, which was great. I mean, it pays a mortgage and a couple bills, but lately it's been like $400, and like, okay, well, I paid my internet and electric bill maybe, but
yeah,
so massively huge thank you to people that were willing to support us.
Yeah, praise God for everybody out there. Um, and yeah, YouTube, when they changed the algorithm, it really affected a lot of people because I know a lot of people were really doing well with their YouTube accounts and were able to, kind of focus more on just generating content and supplying that need in the community here. But then not only did they change the algorithm and kind of diminish, I mean, probably by 25% is what it of return of what it used to be. And then they changed everything as far as the recommended videos. And then now it's even difficult typing in the full name of a particular video to get it to even come up, in like five or six things down as far as the item selection. It's crazy how they are hiding and keeping truth and allowing like the corporate sponsors to be the first to come up, and all the disinformation is what is easily and readily available and accessible when it comes to doing a keyword search. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not what it used to be.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I can't even find some videos anymore, where I used to be able to just type in something, 2 words, and get it to come up, and now that's near impossibility. But
Yeah. Well, they're
yeah,
screaming at us in the chat room. When are we gonna get to the Enoch
yes,
study?
yes. All right, we're moving into it, people.
Sometimes I
Uh,
feel like the gladiator. You know,
right.
are you not entertained? 10 years worth of free stuff, and people are complaining that we talk about life for a few minutes.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, we just
Are you
want
not
to
entertained?
keep it real for a little bit, but yeah, let's go ahead and cover the first chapter before we get to break.
Okay, I believe it's chapter 70
Yes.
in the Lawrence. I think for you it's 71. So, okay. Afterwards, my spirit was concealed, ascending into the heavens. I beheld the sons of the holy angels treading on flaming fire, whose garments and robes were white, and whose countenances were transparent as crystal. I saw two rivers of fire glittering like the what is it, hyacinth? Then I
Hyacinth.
hyacinth. Then I fell on my face before the Lord of Spirits, and Michael, one of the archangels, took me by my right hand, raised me up, and brought me out to where was every secret of mercy and secret of righteousness. He showed me all the hidden things of the extremities of the heaven, all the receptacles of the stars and the splendors of all, from whence they went forth before the face of the holy. And he concealed the spirit of Enoch in the heaven of heavens. There I beheld in the midst of that light a building raised with stones of stones of ice. And in the midst of these stones, vibrations of living fire. My spirit saw around the circle of this flaming habitation, on one of its extremities, that there were rivers full of living fire which encompassed it. Then the seraphim, the cherubim, the ophanim surrounded it. These are those who never sleep, but watch the throne of his glory. And I beheld angels innumerable, thousands of thousands and myriads of myriads, who surrounded that habitation. Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Phanuel, and the holy angels who were in the heavens above went in and out of it. Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel went out of that habitation, and holy angels innumerable. With them was the Ancient of Days, whose head was white as wool and pure, and his robe was indescribable. Then I fell upon my face, while all my flesh was dissolved, and my spirit became changed. I cried out with a loud voice, with a powerful spirit, blessing, glorifying, and exalting. And those blessings which proceeded from my mouth became acceptable in the presence of the Ancient of Days. The Ancient of Days came with Michael and Gabriel, Raphael and Phanuel, with thousands and myriads of myriads, which could not be numbered. Then that angel came to me, and with his voice saluted me, saying, Thou art the offspring of man, who art born for righteousness, and righteousness has rested on thee. The righteousness of the Ancient of Days shall not forsake thee. He said, On thee shall he confer peace in the name of the existing world, for from thence has peace gone forth since the world was created. And thus shall it happen to thee forever and ever. All who shall exist and who shall walk in thy path of righteousness shall not forsake thee forever. With thee shall be their habitations, with thee their lot, nor from thee shall they be separated forever and ever. And thus shall length of days be with the offspring of man. Peace shall be to the righteous, and the path of integrity shall the righteous pursue, in the name of the Lord of spirits forever and ever. And that'll take us right to the break, probably.
Right to the break, yes.
Boom.
Yeah. So we will be back. We're 10 seconds out from break, but we'll be back and we'll pick it up and we'll move forward, everyone. And the next chapter actually begins the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries. So we'll be right back, everyone.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Gio, founder of Truth Frequency Radio and host of Beyond the Veil. The mainstream media and establishment are running scared right now, and they've prominently featured TruthFrequencyRadio.com as number 89 on the federal government's hit list, also known as the fake news list, which is essentially a list of sites slated for censorship on Facebook, YouTube, Google, and other social media. Now is the time for you to get involved. Share your favorite TFR shows far and wide on forums and social media. Tell your friends and family about your favorite shows. If you're a business owner, get in touch with us to feature your product or your product right service here on TFR. And if you haven't done so already, become a TFR supporter now and get unlimited commercial-free downloads in high quality. Visit truthfrequencyradio.com/signup. Thank you for making TFR the leader in independent and uncensored talk radio. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slows circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
True initiation is an inward journey. It's a spiritual path that is totally inward. It has nothing to do with anything external to you.
I want to determine if the Grand Architect is indeed what I believe it to be, which is the artificial intelligence.
The initiatory path is one of self-discovery and self-revealing. It's not a journey that someone can hold your hand through.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take you through the steps of initiation. Remember, you are divinity.
Step Beyond the Veil with Chris and Sherry Gio.
Fridays and Saturdays,
7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
We are TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
And in those days, there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on the genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth, we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we lost. And indeed, they believe that these these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past time, our lapses, and with it are much of the facts of imagine that God's being
All right, welcome back, everybody. We are reading the R.H. Charles, chapter 71. And it came to pass after this that my spirit was translated, and it ascended into the heavens, and I saw the holy sons of God. They were stepping on flames of fire. Their garments were white, and their raiment, and their faces shone like snow. And I saw two streams of fire, and the light of that fire shone like hyacinth. And I fell on my face before the Lord of spirits. And the angel Michael, one of the archangels, seized me by my right hand, and lifted me up and led me forth into all the secrets. And he showed me all the secrets of righteousness. And he showed me all the secrets of the ends of the heavens, and all the chambers of all the stars, and all the luminaries, whence they proceed before the face of the holy ones. And he translated my spirit into the heaven of heavens, and I saw there, as it were, a structure built of crystals, and between those crystals tongues of living fire. And my spirit saw the girdle which girt that house of fire, and on its four sides were streams full of living fire, and they girt that house. And round about were seraphim, cherubic, and ophanim. And these are they who sleep not and guard the throne of his glory. And I saw angels who could not be counted, 1,000 thousands and 10,000 times 10,000, encircling that house. And Michael and Raphael and Gabriel and Phanuel and the holy angels who are above the heavens go in and out of that house. And they came forth from that house, and Michael and Gabriel, Raphael and Phanuel, and many holy angels without number, and with them the head of days, his head white and pure as wool, and his raiment indescribable. And I fell on my face, and my whole body became relaxed, and my spirit was transfigured. And I cried with a loud voice, with the spirit of power, and blessed and glorified and extolled. And these blessings which went forth out of my mouth were well pleasing before that head of days. And that head of days came with Michael and Gabriel, Raphael, and Phanuel, thousands and 10,000s of angels without number. And he came to me and greeted me with his voice and said unto me, This is the Son of Man, who is born unto righteousness, and righteousness abides over him, and the righteousness of the head of days forsakes him not. And he said unto me, He proclaims unto thee peace in the name of the world to come. For from hence has proceeded peace since the creation of the world. And so shall it be unto thee forever and forever and ever. And all shall walk in his ways, since righteousness never forsaketh him. With him will be their dwelling places, and with him their heritage. And they shall not be separated from him forever and ever and ever. And so there shall be length of days with that Son of Man, and the righteous shall have peace and an upright way, in the name of the Lord of spirits, forever and ever.
Looks like, did Charles cut it short? Because I had 24 verses.
Yeah, it seems like 18. There is one passage that I didn't read. It says, lost passage wherein the Son of Man was described as accompanying the head of days. And Enoch asked one of the angels concerning the Son of Man as to who he was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw
And
that.
that's passage 13. But yeah, I guess that it is shorter.
I wonder if this is the. Whoops, sorry. Sorry, I had my microphone up on my my head. I raised it up. It probably sounded like I was a million miles away. I was looking at my audio level. I'm like, what the heck? It's turned up all the way. How come? It's kind of like, where's my glasses? Right? It's on your head, stupid.
Right, on your head.
Dude, getting old stinks, man.
Right.
Do you think this is what the passage that Jude's quoting, where he talks about the myriads of angels? He comes with the myriads of angels.
Yeah, the 10,000s. Yeah. Well, I think it's more the chapter 1, but yeah, I think this is part of that whole. Still, the scene at the with the second advent where he returns with all of the angels and all of the saints.
Yeah. This is again, man. I so want to have like a budget to make something like this, because
no doubt.
This is,
and to do it right.
Yeah, I mean, this is epic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Book of Enoch is fantastic, and why somebody hasn't done something previous is surprising. It really is.
Well, sometimes I get really bitter about this, but it's like, when it comes to media, the devil's camp has billions of dollars. Just throw it around like it's nothing, because it's like, if you have Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or anything like that, or even back in the days when we had Blockbuster Video, it's like 95% of what's there is total crap, just garbage. Like, I'm not even talking about from a Christian standpoint. When you go that way, it's like 99% garbage, or maybe more. But just for the sake of media in general, put Christianity aside just for a minute, just for the sake of looking at it as media. It is garbage. I mean, horrible movies. And Sheila's always saying it all the time. She's like, how the heck did this get funded?
Right.
Like, and you look up the budgets on some of these, and some of the big budget stuff too, but some of this stuff is like 10, 20, 30 million dollar budgets, and you're like, how the heck did this ever get funded? I don't understand how that works, but if this is ever going to happen, Christians gonna have to make it happen. I mean, that's the only way it's going to happen.
Right.
Because if you trust Hollywood to do it, they're gonna do like Noah. You're gonna get $150 million movie with great special effects and Academy Award winning actors, and it's gonna suck.
Right.
Like, how do you mess up the story that like every culture in the world knows?
Yeah.
How do you mess that up?
Yeah.
But they did.
Yeah, they changed a couple things, make him homicidal, and that's so crazy. But I think, and they say it in the protocols too, with regard to the entertainments, the amusements, and the distractions. They just want to fill our minds with crap, and have, they want to raise kids in a way that makes them schizophrenic and insane and desensitized to the sanctity of life and any respect. The whole thing of the Alice Bailey, the 10-point plan for destroying the family and the Christian heritage and traditions and familial values, all of that. And they've really done a great job. I mean, if you want to implement and fulfill what they said in with regard to that 10-point plan, they have definitely fulfilled it. And you look at the times that we're in now and where it was, even, the times of June and Beaver, Cleaver and
Yeah.
all of that. I mean, things
Yeah.
are so crazy different now.
Yeah. So this house, I mean, earlier we saw like two houses,
Mm-hmm.
and and the way those were described were just magnificent. Also like this amazing like
Right.
fire and ice and just incredible. He doesn't really describe what he just says in a house. There's a lot going in, but apparently this must be the one where the Ancient of Days is, because it describes him.
Mm-hmm.
Here. What else here? In the head and with him the head of days, his head white and pure as wool, and his raiment indescribable. I mean, that's very similar to what we see John describing in the book of Revelation.
Oh yeah.
As Yeshua. Although
Absolutely.
this is describing the Ancient of Days, and then it talks about the Son of Man after that.
Mm-hmm. So the Father and the Son.
Yeah, have the same appearance.
Right. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. Yeah. I go to prepare a place for you.
So I'm glad you brought that up. I was watching some of the older Quest4Truths that I did with Doug Hamp just this week because the Rapture issue just kept coming up for some reason this week. And so, yeah, dude, like, I'm a glutton for punishment, I think. I don't know what it is. There's something wrong with me. Like, I wake up in the morning and say, how can I get abused today? Like whatever it is that I feel like is on my heart, I want to post it. Like, I know before I even hit enter, it's going to cause a firestorm.
Yes.
And then I still hit enter anyway. And then whatever spawns off from that usually ends up like 5 more posts that I'll,
right.
And all of them will get hundreds of comments, and trying to keep up with them. I'm like, what is the matter with me? Go out and garden, dude. Like, you're a sick man, because I keep doing it. But it's like, you'll never learn, stupid monkey. But I went back and I was watching the episodes that Doug Hamp and I did on Revelation 4 and 5, and that's because in Revelation 4, that's one of those examples where they'll say that, see, this is a type of the rapture, because the church isn't mentioned after John chapter 4, and when John goes up, that's a picture of the rapture, and we're like, that's what, how,
what?
That's so weak, but
right.
I forgot what I was going to say about that. Why was I even bringing that up? Doug and I were doing this study, Rapture.
We were talking about the Father's house and.
Oh, the many mansions. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because the issue of the New Jerusalem came up.
Right.
And because we were in, I think it was we covered the Rapture in 17 and 18, and. 17 was, I'd already come off the Rapture page because I was in 2013. I already come off the Rapture page, like pre-Rapture page in 2009 or 10, I think, and started writing about it in 2011, and then we did the show in 2013. And so prior to that, when Cat was out of the bag, when I first came off that page, that's what got me kicked to the curb with the Prophecy in the News crowd. And then. It was so, like, 17, like, Doug pretty much let me just go. He piped in every now and then. You could tell that he was leaning in my direction. And then in 18, episode 18, I said, okay, I spilled my cards. Where are you with this now, And that was his coming out episode where he said, yeah, I look, I got to admit, I don't see evidence for preacher rapture. And boom! Dude was kicked to the curb as hard as I was. Like, he at one point he had like 4 or 5 pages of endorsement and advertisement in the Prophecy in the News magazine. At one point, Bob Ulrich even said Doug should be buying his own island right about now because he had so much, stuff there. And they did the same thing to him that they did to me. Like, boom, kicked to the curb, like ostracized, blacklisted. Like, pow. and then I think it was the following episode we were talking about New Jerusalem, and I was saying, because we were talking about dispensation theology and how dispensation theology contradicts Romans 11, Ephesians 2, and a whole bunch of other places in the Bible that tell you point blank, look, the bride is Israel. And if you get saved, then you were and you're not of the bloodline of Jacob, then you're a wild olive branch that was grafted into the cultivated olive tree that is Israel in Romans chapter 11, and then you become heirs to the blessings of Abraham and the commonwealth of Israel in Ephesians 2, and Galatians even talks about it. So we're talking about all that, and people are like, well, we're the bride of Christ. Well, okay, if you believe Christians are the body and the bride of Christ, who were the first Christians? Jews, like everybody, the disciples, Jews, Pentecost, Jews,
apostles,
yeah, so for people to make a differentiation between Christian and Jew is just plain stupid. Like the first Christians, if you define a Christian as a Christ follower, were his disciples.
Right.
They were all Jews. Everybody in the first century, Jews. Until Paul branched out and started reaching many, which I believe were dispersed Israel, with Greeks sprinkled in and other people sprinkled in as well. So we were talking about how the New Jerusalem is described point blank as the bride of Christ. It's Revelation 20 or 21 or 2, I forget which chapter it is, but he says, behold, I'll show you the bride. And then he proceeds to describe New Jerusalem. And Doug made an interesting point. He was talking about the city of New York. And if you live in New York, we were talking about that earlier. If you live in New York, New York, the city of New York is defined by the city and the buildings. But there are people in those buildings, that are New Yorkers. And so he was likening that to like the way if you lived in New York in the buildings, you'd be a New Yorker. If you live in the New Jerusalem, then you would be the bride. You're the inhabitants of New Jerusalem, which is described as Israel with the 12 tribes and the gates and the apostles and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's no mystical 13th gate called the church. So you're only going in one of the 12 gates, and there's none of them labeled a church because the church is Israel. That's why you're grafted into it. And so the thought came up, whether you think of New Jerusalem as a Borg ship, like a big cube, or a pyramid, which I lean towards that description, but either one works.
I agree. Yeah.
That I say all that to say it was a long drawn out thing to say. Do you think that those are the mansions he's talking about? That the mansions are contained in the New Jerusalem?
Yeah, I do think so, because in my opinion, that again is the place of the righteous, and that even in the story of the Gospel of Nicodemus, where we were talking about how there's that one mention in Matthew of the resurrected saints being seen in the streets of Jerusalem, and that many were seen and resurrected with him, and that even the two children of Simeon, Corinthian and Lucidus, I think is his name, they were the ones that were the witnesses that gave them, the Pharisees, what became the Gospel of Nicodemus. And it describes that Christ descending down into Sheol, breaking open the gates of iron and brass, and taking Adam and his descendants up to heaven, turning them over to the Archangel Michael, and being baptized in the Archerusian Lake. Then they were entering into New Jerusalem, the city of God, and waiting outside was the thief of which Christ had said, this day you'll be with me in paradise. And he was waiting for them to come into paradise so he could enter in with them. And then when they all went in together, well, he told them the story of who he was, because he looked like a vagabond and they were wondering. And so he told them the story of how he believed and saw the signs and the wonders. And then Christ said, you'd be with them in paradise today. And so they enter into the city of New Jerusalem, and they see Enoch and Elijah. And they then proceed to tell them the story of how they're going to be the two witnesses of Revelation 11 that are then murdered, how they had been preserved, and they were translated. They had not yet succumbed to death, but that they would do so at the end of days when they go forth to convict the Antichrist, and to make all the people of that time aware, and to accuse him as being, the false Messiah, which is interesting because I also read something earlier today from the Legends of the Jews. You know how we were talking about and have mentioned in many shows about how when the two witnesses come again, that they would settle what seems to be a lot of, even with the calendar and with different issues, Sabbath and all that. Well, I found a passage. It was actually a whole like two paragraphs about Elijah coming, and that kind of thing is mentioned, how they would settle and help us to understand the law and the correct discernment of, the commandments and the law at that time. So maybe when we come back from break, I'll see if I can pull it up and I'll share it with you. But it's fascinating because it's exactly what you and I have been talking about without, you know, really knowing or understanding if that were to be true. And yet here we have this passage that seems to confirm
That's
that that
awesome,
would be
man.
the case. Yeah, yeah. I thought you'd be excited.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You know,
when we were doing,
it's crazy how some of the things that will do a show, and then like
right,
2 or sometimes next week, but or 2 weeks later, what was it like? It was just like, I want to say like 2 shows before lockdown, we were talking about the vaccines were likely going to be the mark of the beast. And,
right.
And then boom, lockdown and all
Yeah,
this talk
here we
about
are. Right.
ID 2020, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of freaky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Kind of crazy. Oh, I was just going to say one other thing with regard to this particular chapter, and that's the way that you see the cherubim, the seraphim, and the ophanim, and they are all encircling around the throne of God. And in my opinion, this also matches what we see in Ezekiel chapter 1, where he's describing the wheels within the wheels, and how I wrote about, I believe that this is what we see, the movements of the luminaries around Polaris, which again, I believe Polaris is indicative of where the throne of the Most High God is located. Because we see in Isaiah 14 that Lucifer mentions the wanting to set his throne above the stars and the clouds of God in the sides of the north above the mount of the congregation. And so I do believe that the mount of the congregation, again, is this Mount Meru, Mount Olympus, Mount, the Mount Zion, the spiritual Mount Zion, the Mount of the congregation there at the center, this Rupus Negra, the black rock, um, and that's also, the exceedingly high place that Satan took Christ when he showed him all the kingdoms of the world. And Jacob's ladder, the opening towards the north, and then the hollow earth entrance down into Sheol, where God says that instead of you being able to exalt yourself, I'm going to cast you down to the sides of the pit. And so it seems to all fit with regard to the topography and all the descriptions of the motions of the luminaries around this one fixed star. Um, the time-lapse photography of the motions of the luminaries over the course of an evening, and how they look like um, wheels within wheels, and the eyes and the circles and all that. It seems to me that this is what Ezekiel was shown, and he was shown the throne of God in similar manner than what we see in the time-lapse photography now.
Yeah, agreed. When you're talking about the luminaries, I was just reminded of something caught my attention in this chapter. We're just looking at the chambers of all the stars and all the luminaries, whence they proceed before the face of the holy ones. That's always kind of intrigued me because, like, we are told that we don't see the sun. I mean, excuse me, the stars during the day because of the light of the sun.
Right.
But I've launched several weather balloons, and in the daytime, and as soon as it gets, and I've actually been pretty high in some planes too. It's just pitch black up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, where did the stars go? When they're not out during the day. Those
right.
people say, well, they're being seen by the other part of the world that's in darkness right now. But I mean, do you think that they actually go in and out of chambers, or are they just doing their thing up there and we just see it at different times because of the sun?
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, as far as like the Pac-Man, how they describe the sun just moving straight across and entering a portal and coming out the other
I don't believe that either.
I don't agree with that. But
what about this? Well, we're going to break.
Well, we'll pick it up on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be right back, everyone, for a second hour.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like Beyond the Veil with Chris and Cherie Geo, X Squared with Brooks Agnew, Paranormal Portal with Brent Thomas, Jaronism Raw with Jaron and Missa, Fearless with Frank Castle, Strange World with Mark Sargent, The Eye of Ra with Ra Castaldo, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray, Ironworks with Josh Corey, The Kev Baker Show, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR Live. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
A plan to reopen. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. It will come in 3 phases, and not every state will open at once.
The focus is on the mitigation of any risk of resurgence or the emergence of the coronavirus in states where it's not yet emerged. There is a focus in the president's new guidelines on the most vulnerable.
Vice President Mike Pence.
It is our intention at the president's direction to provide these guidelines to assist governors and state health officials in evaluating the most responsible manner to reopen the economies of their states at a time and manner of their choosing.
It will be a slow process. President Trump giving the power to governors to make the decision to reopen. New York remains the hot spot for the virus, and Governor Andrew Cuomo says
the New York pause policies, the close down policies, will be extended in coordination with other states to May 15th.
And the governor again told residents they need to wear masks while in public if they're in a situation where they can't social distance. California saw the highest number of deaths in one day from the virus, but the governor says hospitalizations are declining.
69 people passed away over a one-day period between Wednesday and Thursday, bringing the state total to 890 people who have died from the virus. California Governor Gavin Newsom says before we begin to talk about reopening the state's economy, we must have more robust testing.
The goal, the expectation that I have is north of 25,000 being a baseline. But no, we'll need to broaden still our testing capacity, still our ability to do community surveillance.
While the death toll was higher, new hospitalization numbers have declined. Just over 3,140 people are in hospitals with the virus, and just under 1,200 people are in intensive care units. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
America's listening to Fox News.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets of Field here on Truth Frequency Radio, and Rob, Skiba, and I are continuing our discourse on the book of Enoch. And Rob, you were asking about the something before we went to break, so let me give you a chance to clear that up before we move forward.
Yeah, I was asking about the chamber of the stars, and I'm with you. I don't believe the sun. There's some of the so-called flat Earth Pac-Man models where, waka waka waka, the sun comes in, it goes across, and then goes in, and then pops back out the other, on the right.
Side, right? Yeah.
I don't believe that, but one of the things that occurred to me, and we'll get into this as we get into the following chapters in the course of the heavenly luminaries, is that the sun and moon were put in place to govern that which already existed before they showed up. Yes. So, like, light was already there before the sun showed up. So, while the sun does give light, it's governing something that was already there. I mean, there was day and night for 3 days before the sun showed up. So, I've wondered if there's like I don't know how to describe it, like a rotating dome, if you will, that is light, that the sun happens to be positioned in, because the sun I think the word sun actually just means heat, if memory serves, and it certainly does that. It provides light and heat, but I'm wondering, what your thoughts are on that, but specifically the passage we just read, the chambers of the stars, like when you send up a weather balloon, and people try to say, well, that's because whatever's in the foreground is so bright that it's closing down the iris. That's baloney. There's truth to that cameras will do that the iris, if there's something in the foreground that's bright, the iris will close down, and so whatever might be less bright in the background gets, darkened out. True. But send up a weather balloon with the camera pointing up, so there's nothing bright in the foreground, and it's going to be black if you send it up during the daytime. So, kind of wondering, like, where do the stars go?
Right. Yeah, I've noticed that too with regard to the weather balloon footage, and with regard to the chambers, as far as what is also cited as the portals and the gates of heaven, or the heavenly gates in the book of Enoch. In my description of these particular passages, especially when it talks about the movement of the sun between what are these six gates of heaven, I believe that it is indicative of just the area, and it's a division of the space between what is the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer, and that it takes 30 days for the sun to move through each one of these gates, and so it would be, this span of area, and that this is what is Enoch is talking about with regard to these particular gates or these portals, and I think it's the same with the chambers. But when we go into what is described as even the places where the winds come forth from, I think there are different chambers that are located in the different regions and the different areas of the sky, and that even we see that the rains, the lightnings, the thunders, the dew, the hoarfrost, all of these different um, elements, or what are called spirits, they hold position in these different regions, and I think that they come forth from these particular chambers, these different areas, to affect the world. Like the when we get to the winds, we see that the winds are divided proportionally to the cardinal directions, and that we have a cold wind, a warm, hot wind, and also a mild wind that brings the pleasant rains. And I think, those are also linked to the positioning as far as what Enoch is describing, is that there are these three windows that these different winds and these different, like the southern wind, I believe, is, that which is closer towards the equator, and it's a hot and a dry wind. And then the one that is between what would be the equator and the northern pole, that would be the mild and one that brings the rains, and the one that is closest towards the north, or if it's the outer extreme towards at Antarctica, that would be the one that has the cold, the winds. And so when we look at, because I think the whole idea of understanding what Enoch is describing is that people have to look at where Enoch was placed when he was describing all of these motions for the luminaries and the description for all of these chambers and portals. And I believe Enoch was taken to, where the North Star is, where Polaris is, and that looking down from there, he was described the motions of all the luminaries, and that the Earth was a backdrop for all of those motions, which is why, in the very opening quote that I read at the very beginning of the show, it describes the motions of these luminaries from west to east, with the way that the sun sets, and then the sun comes back to the north and then back to the east. And if you think about that according to the heliocentric model for understanding the world, I mean, there's no way to make sense of that motion at all.
No.
Especially if you're trying to figure, well, it's the Earth that is spinning once in every 24 hours that causes the sun to set and to rise. Well, how do you get the sun going from east to west and the north to east? But again, in my opinion, when you understand that it is the sun and the moon and the other luminaries, especially the 7 planets, which the moon and the sun are included with Mercury, Mars, Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter, as being the luminaries which move in circle around Polaris. Then, the uh, the stuff that Enoch is talking about can then be broken down and understood in a way that you can then make sense of all of what he is describing here in detail. Because, there's motion to the sun and the moon and all these luminaries, and not the earth. The earth is the still foundation, the stationary fixed backdrop for all of these motions. And so when we go into, which, next chapter we'll begin that introspection, then we can start the description and help people to understand these things.
Yeah, this is exciting for me. The next section is called the Book of the Courses of the Heavenly Luminaries, and I've shared it before, but I'll share it again here because we're in this part of the episode of Quest4Truth doing this. But I had, after I published Genesis and the Synchronized Biblically Endorsed Extra Biblical Text book, that's a mouthful, but that's a volume that I published back, I think it was 2013, somewhere in there. It has Genesis with the King James and the Septuagint side by side, like a parallel Bible, so you can compare the two. And it has the full book of Enoch and the version, the R.H. Charles version, and the books of Joshua and Jubilees all in one book. And in the introduction to that book, I had said that I was working on creating just a standalone book of Enoch with the R.H. Charles and my commentary. And I had extensive notes. I mean, I still have I printed it all up in like a little velo binder kind of deal. printed up with handwritten notes all over it and scripture references, and just showing how much the Book of Enoch has influenced the canonized text and the authors of the canonized text, and showing where certain things like in the Day of Atonement, the casting lots for Azazel. Well, I mean, there's no precedence for that anywhere in the canonized text, and you have no clue who that goat's going out to unless you read the Book of Enoch. So it was stuff like that. And I'd gotten all the way up to chapter 71, and something, I forget what it was at the time, got me sidetracked, and so I dog-eared the page, put the manuscript aside, and got busy with whatever else it was that I was doing. And so that would have been like mid-2013-ish sometime. 14 was probably the audio drama, the CD audio drama at that time, took up quite a bit of time. And then I did the Yahuwah Triangle, was at the end of 2014, and I was also doing Quest4Truth with Doug Hamp at the time, so all that was keeping me quite busy. And then April 2015, I get into Flat Earth. And, that sucked up, 4+ years of my life. I'm still doing stuff on that since 2015, but it was after like just a few months in 2015 being into it, and I had read Zetetic Astronomy by then. I had read 100 Proofs by William Carpenter, and Terra Firma had the most impact on me. And after reading Terra Firma, I was like, geez, I wonder, I'm going to go, because I had, I'm talking within a day or two of hearing Mark Sargent's stuff, I prayed that prayer, Father, if I'm bringing preconceived biases to the text, please remove them from me, and I'm going to start over in Genesis and, let your Holy Spirit show me. Well, boom, you hit the firmament in verse 6, right? So I had already become very convinced quite early on that the Bible was a flat earth book. And that's what prompted a massive blog that eventually got so big that I said, I need to just create a whole website, dedicated to this topic, and hence Testing the Globe was born, testingtheglobe.com. People in the chat room are wondering, where the verses are for the Bible verses. Well, you can go to testingtheglobe.com/Bible.html, and that's where you'll find the verses that I was looking at then. There's been many that have come up since then. So it was probably, first it became convinced the Bible said it. Then I saw, what those 3 books I mentioned had to say. And then I'm like, geez, I wonder what the Book of Enoch has to say about it. And I went and picked up my manuscript, and what do you know? It was dog-eared to this page.
Yeah.
And I just had to laugh, man. I was just like sitting there going, because, I looked at the title, this big, bold title right here, The Book of the Courses of the Heavenly Luminaries. And now I remember having read it before when I was in the heliocentric globular Earth mindset, Copernican model mindset, and this was complete gibberish.
Yes.
Like we loved Enoch for what it had to say about the Watchers, the fallen angels, the Nephilim, and all that stuff, and even about the Son of Man, but this was complete and total gibberish. And for people who are out there that aren't yet on the Flat Earth page, just listen to what we're about to read. And try to, if you accept Enoch with any measure of credibility, and this is the thing, it's like either Enoch is valid or it's not. You can't say, well, I like the Nephilim stuff, but I'm not going to accept the Son of Man stuff, Dave Murphy. You can't say, I like the fallen angel stuff and the Nephilim stuff, but I'm not going to accept the flat earth stuff, L.A. Marzulli, Steve Quayle, Tom Horn, Doug Hamp, et al. It's like, no, take the whole thing, man. Like, it's either true and accurate about the Nephilim and the fallen angels and all that stuff and the Son of Man and the course of the heavenly luminaries, or it's not.
Yes. Or it's not, exactly.
So with that preface in mind, let me go over to the Charles. Now, I don't think I've ever read the Lawrence. I don't think I've ever read the Lawrence course of the heavenly luminaries, so it'd be interesting to see if there's anything that stands out here.
All right. Yeah, that's going to be very cool.
Here we go. The Book of the Revolutions of the Luminaries of Heaven, according to their respective classes, their respective powers, their respective periods, their respective names, the places where they commence their progress, and their respective months, which Uriel, the holy angel who was with me, explained to me, he who conducts them, the whole account of them, according to every year of the world forever, until a new work shall be effected, which will be eternal. This is the first law of the luminaries. The sun and the light arrive at the gates of heaven, which are on the east, and on the west of it at the western gates of heaven. I beheld the gates whence the sun goes forth, and the gates where the sun sets. Now, I'm going to address this right here, sun sets. Somebody was like, oh, the Bible says the sun sets. Well, yeah, your English translation says that. If you look up the Hebrew word, it means come and go.
Right.
Now, from our perspective, it looks like it rises and sets, just like an airplane cruising at 35,000 feet. When it enters our visual perspective, it looks like it rises till it comes straight up over us and then sets as it goes down behind us. But it's going perfectly parallel over the earth. Well, that's exactly what the sun's doing. So it's not inappropriate for them to say that it sets, because that's the visual perspective. That's what it looks like. But the Hebrew word used there is come and go, which, well, that's what we believe. In which gates also the moon rises and sets, and I beheld the conductors of the stars among those who precede them. 6 gates were at the rising and 6 at the setting of the sun. And these respectively, one after another, are on a level. And numerous windows are on the right and on the left sides of those gates. First proceeds forth that great luminary which is called the sun, the orb of which is as the orb of heaven, the whole of it being replete with splendid and flaming fire. Its chariot, where it ascends, the wind blows. The sun sets in heaven, and returning by the north to proceed towards the east, is conducted so as to enter by that gate and illuminate the face of heaven. In the same manner it goes forth in the first month by a great gate. It goes forth through the fourth of those 6 gates which are at the rising of the sun. And in the fourth gate, through which the sun with the moon proceeds, in the first part of it there are 12 open windows, from which issues out a flame when they are opened at their proper periods. When the sun rises in heaven, it goes forth through his fourth gate 30 days, and by the fourth gate in the west of heaven on a level with it descends. During that period the day is lengthened from the day, and the night curtailed from the night for 30 days. And then the day is longer by 2 parts than the night. The day is precisely 10 parts, and the night is 8. The sun goes forth through this fourth gate and sets in it, and turns to the fifth gate during 30 days, after which it proceeds from and sets in the fifth gate. Then the day becomes lengthened by a second part, so that it is 11 parts, while the night becomes shortened and is only 7 parts. The sun now returns to the east, entering into the 6th gate, and rising and setting in the 6th gate 31 days on account of its signs. At that point, or at that period, the day is longer than the night, being twice as long as the night, and becomes 12 parts. But the night is shortened and becomes 6 parts. Then the sun rises up, that the day may be shortened, and the night lengthened. And the sun returns towards the east, entering into the 6th gate, where it rises and sets for 30 days. When that period is completed, the day becomes shortened precisely 1 part, so that it is 11 parts, while the night is 7 parts. Then the sun goes from the west, from that 6th gate, and proceeds eastward, rising in the 5th gate for 30 days, and setting again westwards in the 5th gate of the west. At that period the day becomes shortened 2 parts, and is 10 parts, while the night is 8 parts. Then the sun goes from the 5th gate, and sets in the 5th gate of the west, and rises in the 4th gate for 31 days, on account of its signs setting in the west. At that period the day is made equal with the night, and being equal with it, the night becomes 9 parts, and the day 9 parts. Then the sun goes from that gate, as it sets in the west, and returning to the east proceeds by the 3rd gate for 30 days, setting in the west at the 3rd gate. At that period the night is lengthened from the day during 30 mornings, and the day is curtailed from the day during 30 days, the night being 10 parts precisely, and the day 8 parts. The sun now goes from the 3rd gate, as it sets in the 3rd gate in the west, but returning to the east, it proceeds by the 2nd gate of the east for 30 days. In like manner also it sets in the 2nd gate in the west of heaven. At that period the night is 11 parts, and the day 7 parts. Then the sun goes out at that time from the 2nd gate, as it sets in the 2nd gate in the west, but returns to the east, proceeding by the 1st gate for 31 days, and sets in the west in the 1st gate. At that period The night is lengthened as much again as the day. It is 12 parts precisely, while the day is 6 parts. The sun has thus completed its beginnings, and a second time goes around from these beginnings. Into that gate it enters for 30 days, and sets in the west in the opposite part of heaven. At that period the night is contracted in its length a fourth part, that is one portion, and becomes 11 parts. The day is 7 parts. Then the sun returns and enters into the second gate of the east. It returns by these beginnings 30 days, rising and setting. At that period the night is contracted in its length. It becomes 10 parts, and the day 8 parts. Then the sun goes from that second gate and sets in the west, but returns to the east and rises in the east in the third gate, 31 days, setting in the west of heaven. At that period the night becomes shortened. It is 9 parts, and the night is equal with the day. The year is precisely 364 days. The lengthening of the day and night and the contraction of the day and night are made to differ from each other by the progress of the sun. By means of this progress the day is daily lengthened and the night greatly shortened. This is a law and progress of the sun, and its turning when it turns back, turning during 60 days and going forth. This is the great everlasting luminary, that which he names the sun forever and ever. This also is that which goes forth a great luminary, and which is named after its peculiar kind, as God commanded. And thus it goes in and out, neither slackening nor resting, but running on its chariot by day and by night. It shines with a seventh portion of light from the moon, but the dimensions of both are equal. It's quite a mouthful there.
Yeah, it's a lot. And once I read it, I'll explain it, because once you understand what the motions are that Enoch is describing, it makes complete sense, and it's the only way to make sense of this particular chapter and these particular verses. So let me go to the beginning here.
While you're doing that, I'm going to look on my YouTube channel for the Four Seasons video.
Yeah.
That I did. So I got your face on the screen at the moment while I'm surfing on the other side here.
Okay.
It's long enough, so you'll be cranking along, and I should get it up pretty quickly here.
Okay. The book of the courses of the luminaries of the heaven. The relations of each according to their classes, their dominion, and their seasons, according to their names and places of origin, and according to their months, which Uriel, the holy angel who was with me, who is their guide, showed me. And he showed me all their laws exactly as they are, and how it is with regard to all the years of the world, and unto eternity, till the new creation is accomplished, which dureth till eternity. And this is the first law of the luminaries. The luminary of the sun has its rising in the eastern portals of the heaven, and its setting in the western portals of the heaven. And I saw 6 portals in which the sun rises, and 6 portals in which the sun sets, and the moon rises and sets in these portals, and the leaders of the stars and those whom they lead, 6 in the east and 6 in the west, and all following each other in accurately corresponding order. Also many windows to the right and to the left of these portals. And first there goes forth the great luminary named the sun, and his circumference is like the circumference of the heaven, and he is quite filled with illuminating and heating fire. The chariot on which he ascends the wind drives, and the sun goes down from the heaven and returns through the north in order to reach the east, and is so guided that he comes to the appropriate portal and shines in the face of the heaven. In this way he rises in the first month in the great portal, which is the fourth. Those 6 portals in the east, and in the 4th portal, from which the sun rises in the first month, are 12 window openings from which proceed a flame when they are opened in their season. And when the sun rises in the heaven, he comes forth through that fourth portal 30 mornings in succession and sets accurately in the fourth portal in the west of heaven. And during this period, the day becomes daily longer and the night nightly shorter to the 30th morning. On that day, the day is no longer than the night by a ninth part, and the day amounts exactly to 10 parts and the night to 8. And all right, we'll be right back, everyone, and we'll help you to understand all this.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
So, you love talk radio, then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free app from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the Lime Scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate Lime Scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
More than a dozen astronauts have officially reported UFOs. Hundreds of hours of UFO footage were filmed by astronauts aboard the space shuttle. Many of these UFOs can only be seen in ultraviolet light. Retired former Apollo astronauts and cosmonauts now tell their stories of their own personal UFO encounters.
The Enigma Channel, intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for a final segment. The show is going by so quickly again. But I'll get back into this passage so that we can at least explain this portion of the text before moving on from the show. Continuing. On that day, the day is longer than the night by a ninth part, and the day amounts exactly to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun rises from that fourth portal and sets in the fourth and returns to the fifth portal of the east 30 mornings and rises from it and sets in the fifth portal. And then the day becomes longer by 2 parts and amounts to 11 parts. And the night becomes shorter and amounts to 7 parts, and it returns to the east and enters into the sixth portal, and rises and sets in the sixth portal 1 and 30 mornings, on account of its sign. On that day, the day becomes longer than the night, and the day becomes double the night. And the day becomes 12 parts, and the night is shortened and becomes 6 parts. And the sun mounts up to make the day shorter and the night longer, and the sun returns to the east and enters into the sixth portal and rises from it and sets 30 mornings. And when 30 mornings are accomplished, the day decreases by exactly 1 part and becomes 11 parts, and the night 7. And the sun goes forth from that sixth portal in the west and goes to the east and rises in the fifth portal for 30 mornings and sets in the west, again in the fifth western portal. On that day, the day decreases by 2 parts and amounts to 10 parts, and the night to 8 parts. And the sun goes forth from that fifth portal and sets in the fifth portal of the west and rises in the fourth portal for 1 and 30 mornings, on account of its sign, and sets in the west. On that day, the day is equalized with the night and becomes of equal length, and the night amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts. And the sun rises from that portal and sets in the west, returns to the east, and rises 30 mornings in the third portal and sets in the west in the third portal. And on the day that the night becomes longer than the day, and the night becomes longer than night, and day shorter than day till the 30th morning, and the night amounts exactly to 10 parts, and the day to 8 parts. And the sun rises from the third portal and sets in the third portal in the west, returns to the east, and for 30 mornings rises in the second portal in the east, and in like manner sets in the second portal in the west of heaven. And on that day the night amounts to 11 parts, and the day to 7. And the sun rises on that day from the second portal, sets in the west in the second portal, returns to the east into the first portal for 1 and 30 mornings, and sets in the first portal in the west of the heaven. And on that day the night becomes longer and amounts to the double of the day, and the night amounts exactly to 12 parts, and the day to 6. And the sun has therewith traversed the divisions of his orbit, and turns again on those divisions of his orbit, and enters that portal 30 mornings, and sets also in the west opposite to it. And on that night has the night decreased in length by a ninth part, and the night has become 11 parts, and the day 7 parts. And the sun has returned and entered into the second portal in the east, and returns on those his divisions of his orbit for 30 mornings, rising and setting. And on that day the night decreases in length, and the night amounts to 10 parts, and the day to 8. And on that day the sun rises from that portal, sets in the west, and returns to the east, and rises in the third portal for 1 and 30 mornings, and sets in the west of heaven. On that day the night decreases and amounts to 9 parts, and the day to 9 parts. And the night is equal to the day, and the year is exactly as it to its days 364. And the length of the day and of the night, and the shortness of the day and the night, arise through the course of the sun. These distinctions are made. So it comes that its course becomes daily longer, and its course nightly shorter. And this is the law in the course of the sun and his return, as often as he returns 60 times and rises. The great luminary which is named the sun forever and ever, and that which thus rises is the great luminary, and is so named according to its appearance, according as the Lord commanded, as he rises, so he sets and decreases not, and rests not, but runs day and night, and his light is sevenfold brighter than that of the moon. But as regards size, they are both equal, which I think that's really interesting that it says here that the sun and the moon are of equal size, and it does repeat that in other
Yeah.
portions of Enoch as well.
But of course, we're told that, well, yeah, the reason why the moon perfectly covers up the sun is because the sun's 400 times bigger, but it's also 400 times further away.
Further away, exactly, yeah.
Which when I was believing that camp, that was one of the creation ministries would say, "See, isn't God amazing? Look at that."
Right, yeah, how perfect.
How perfect he set it up so that the alignment's like that. Well, I mean, yes, that would be true if that was the creation model, but that's not the creation model. So, yeah. So I've got I don't know if you can see it on your end, but while you were talking, I had the model that I created going there. I know you've probably got something that has more of the gates and everything visually depicted. Probably.
Yeah, I'm showing an image now. I'm sharing my screen, so tell me if you can see it.
Nope, I can't. But let me go to Skype because, hang on a second, we'll switch over.
Yeah, it would probably be on.
Yeah, it'll be on the Skype thing. I should be. Oh, there we go. Yeah, yeah, I can do that. There we go.
Okay, good.
Okay,
good. All right. So for everybody that just listen to that very lengthy portion, I'm going to break it down and explain what Enoch is describing. First, these numbers you see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This represents the 6 gates of heaven. This orange circle here, this is the Tropic of Capricorn. The yellow circle at the very inner portion of this, that's the Tropic of Cancer. And then you have the purple, which is the equator. That's the median between the two. And so Enoch describes the movement of the sun through these 6 gates of heaven. And he begins the description of the sun's movements when it is between the 3rd and the 4th gate, which is exactly where the equator is. And you'll notice that he describes that the day and the night are exactly 9 portions. When you multiply or divide the 18 portions of the day to a 24-hour period, it equals to 1.3333 hours in length. And so that's what he's describing. And so it takes the sun 30 days to move upwards from the equator here to what is the 5th gate. So it's moving 30 days through the 4th gate, which the 4th gate is the area right above the equator, going towards the Tropic of Cancer. And then you have the 5th gate right above the 4th gate. And so it takes it 30 days to move through that as well. And then Enoch describes that the day is getting longer as it moves towards the Tropic of Cancer. And then when it reaches the 6th gate, you'll notice that it takes 31 days for it to go through this particular gate. And that's because it takes 1 day for the sun to reach the Tropic of Cancer and then to reverse course and to begin moving southward back towards the equator. And so when it is on the equator, that is the vernal equinox. That's the beginning of spring. That's the month of Nisan. and then we have it moving up here towards the Tropic of Cancer for 91 days, and it will reach the Tropic of Cancer for the summer solstice, and then it will reverse course. And this is exactly what Enoch is describing as these gates of heaven. And then it descends 30 days down through the sixth gate, 30 days down through the fifth gate, and then 30 days down through the fourth gate until it reaches the equator once more. And then that is the autumnal equinox. And Enoch describes, the day being 9 parts and the night 9 parts, because again, it's equal 11.999 hours of day and hours of night. And then it moves southward into southern latitudes, and it descends 30 days through the third gate, which is right below the equator, heading towards the Tropic of Capricorn. And then it descends another 30 days through the second gate, and then 30 more days, 31 days to the Tropic of Capricorn. So whenever it reaches the equator or reaches the tropics, that there will be an additional day for it to either cross the equator or to reach the tropic and to reverse course and begin moving back in the other direction. And so this is the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year or the longest night of the year. And this usually happens around December 21st. And then it reverses course and begins to move back up towards the equator again. And so it will move up through the first gate for 30 days, and then another 30 days to go through the second gate, and then it will take 31 days to go through the third gate and to reach the equator once more. And that's the description of the year according to all that Enoch is describing within this particular chapter. So it's basically the sun moving from the equator to the Tropic of Cancer, and then back to the equator, and then to the Tropic of Capricorn, and then back to the equator for what is the fullness of God's solar year, which is 30 days through each one of the gates, and then you have 4 days for the equinoxes and the solstices, giving us a 364-day year. So that's all that Enoch is describing here in this particular, this particular chapter. But notice these circles. This again, these are the areas that comprise the 6 gates, or the portals, or what is called the gates of heaven. But if you follow the sun, it circles from the west all the way, the east to the west, and then setting here and then reaching the vanishing point, then it begins to move back to the north and then comes back to the east, and then it will rise again when it reaches our field of illumination, our perspective, and that will be sunrise, because it reaches our, where we can now see it. And then when it sets in the west, it reaches the vanishing point and disappears, because we are no longer able to see it. But it's not moving up and down in the skies. It's simply remaining level and circling. And, when it reaches the vanishing point, it then begins to illuminate the other side of the earth that is opposite from where we are. We experience night while they experience day. And then when the sun reaches to the east again in the morning for sunrise, then they begin to experience night and we begin to experience day. And so the whole thing of the revolution, which Enoch describes the motions of the sun moving from east to west and then north to east, which is a circle. So you can only explain and understand these motions, and how in this chapter Enoch is describing them as creating the seasons and the movement of the sun back and forth between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn to create what is the 364-day solar year. And so, it's very simple when you have this visual dynamic and you understand the six gates of heaven in this orientation between these two tropics. And then you have, of course, the equator as the median in between. And so when you have this visual and you can understand that the earth is the backdrop for these motions, then it makes sense that this is exactly what we see over the course of the year. That, when the sun is on the equator, it will be directly in the middle. And then when it reaches the Tropic of Cancer, that is where the sun reaches its northern limit. And then it will reverse course and begin moving southward. Once it reaches the equator again, it moves into southern latitudes. Those of us that are in northern latitudes, we experience fall and winter. And the sun, because it's moving over the outer circle of the plane of the earth, that is the spring and summer for, places like South Africa and Brazil and Australia and New Zealand and those places that are on the outer circle of the earth. So very simple to understand once you filter it through the correct cosmology and the correct orientation of the earth, which this is exactly what we see on the map that is depicted on the flag of the United Nations. And so they seem to know something that most people don't.
Yeah, right on. That was a really good explanation. You've got a rather thick book on that. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yes. This whole model and my explanation of it is found in my 9th book, The Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch. And as I had mentioned, that I go through the 14 chapters of the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries to explain exactly what Enoch is describing. And it's only when you apply these motions to the earth as the backdrop, the azimuthal equidistant projection map, as we see it depicted on the banner of the United Nations, that you can understand his descriptions of these motions and how in the solar year, the 364-day solar year, they create what are the seasons, exactly as Rob depicted it and pulled it up on the stellarium. Which, do you want to explain that, brother? Because
yeah,
that's fascinating as well.
Yeah, I got that up on the screen here. This whole thing that and for people who are listening on the radio that don't know what I'm talking about here, you could go to my YouTube channel and just look for how the 4 seasons work on the flat Earth model, and it's the number 4. So how the number 4 seasons work on the flat Earth model, you can pull that up. This came as a result of I was trying to figure out how does the 24-hour sun work. Because people are saying, well, see, that's proof of a globe, is that you can see the sun for 24 hours in some places in Antarctica. So, I was like, well, how does that work even on the globe, right? So, I went on Stellarium, which is heliocentric globe-based software. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Heliocentric globe-based software. That's Stellarium. It's not made by flat earthers. Okay. Now, the software allows you to pick your location where you're going to view the sky. And so I put it in, I think it was like on the Ross Ice Shelf or somewhere in there where people claim to see the 24-hour sun. And that was in question. I believe that there's 24-hour daylight, but the question was, do you actually see the orb of the sun for 24 hours? So I wanted to see what Stellarium would do. And it allows you to pick the type of camera you want, and you can move the camera around so you can look north, south, east, or west. And I picked a fisheye lens camera, so it would give me the maximum field of view. And I pointed the camera straight up into the sky and then pulled it into the earth. and it allows you, the software allows you to turn off different things. So you could turn off the ground plane, you could turn off the it has the labels for the constellations, you could turn off the stars, you could turn off all that stuff. So I turned everything off except for the sun and moon. That's the only thing I left on in the software. Pulled the camera down so I could see all 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, with the fisheye lens, and then set it up to play a full year at fast speed. So I set it for January 1 to the end of December, hit go, and recorded it. So all you see is the sun and moon going in circles over a black background. Now, when you do that, right now what you're seeing on the screen, the sun and moon are going clockwise. When I did it in the software, it was counterclockwise because the perspective was from the ground looking up. So when I saw what it was doing and how it went in an inner circle and it sped up and went into an outer circle in heliocentric globe-based software, I said, wait a minute. So I wonder what this would look like on the flat Earth map. So I got the AE map, put it there, and just using video software, punched the blackout, like with a key, like you do green screen. Punch the blackout, so all you see is the sun and moon going around over the azimuthal equidistant map, and then all I did was flip it horizontally. So instead of going counterclockwise, it's going clockwise because now I'm looking down from above. And it made this happen. Like, heliocentric globe-based software showed, and I didn't really realize it's so like blatantly obvious until I put them side by side. And you can see the counter. I have January, like what's on the screen right now, January 6th and June 6th side by side. And you can see the seconds and minutes are going, together. They're in sync. So time is in sync. Well, the only way that works when you have an outer rim in an inner circle is for the outer circle, the sun and moon have to be going faster, and the inner circle has to be. I did nothing to alter this imagery other than flip it horizontally, so I could key it over the map. And I'm going, what? Are you kidding me? Like, Stellarium, heliocentric globe-based software just explained how the 4 seasons work on the flat Earth map, and I wasn't even looking for that. That wasn't. It was like I figured that out by accident. I'm going, wow. And then you got like Kent Hovind and other people like, on your map, the sun is speeding up and slowing down. What's making it do that? I'm like, you got a bigger problem, Kent. You got to explain how that's working on the spinning heliocentric globe-based software.
Right.
If the Earth is spinning and orbiting, what is giving the illusion, if you will, that the software is showing you accurately of the sun and moon moving faster? You got a bigger problem on the globe than I do on the flat Earth map, Kent, and others.
Right. And, what you were able to elicit as movements for, the Stellarium, the software, again, is exactly what Enoch describes in this chapter of the book. And so, and he also describes that the days, as the sun's moving towards the Tropic of Cancer, the days get longer until it's twice as long when it reaches the, on June 21st for the summer solstice. The day is twice as long as the night. And then once it reverses course, the days start to shorten until it reaches the equator again and equal 9 parts. And then once it reaches the Tropic of Capricorn, and it has to move faster because it's covering a much longer and wider area. And again, which shows that there's not a 24-hour sun in the way that it is in the Arctic, in the southern latitudes. It's not the same. It's very much different. And the sun is moving very much faster, which the people that are out there, they explain that, the nights, the sun moving so fast, darkness comes upon them very quick.
Yeah, that was the thing. When I first put this up there, I started getting comments from people that live like in Australia and New Zealand saying, well, people who grew up there their whole life, they wouldn't know the difference. That's just, they see it do what it does, But if you go there after living in the the northern so-called hemisphere or hemisplane, north of the equator, if you're used to a sunrise and a sunset taking a certain amount of time to do so, and then you relocate and go down to New Zealand or Australia or someplace south of the equator, and you notice, man, the sun really pops up quick and really goes down quick. compared to what I was used to, watching the Montana sunset or Texas
Right,
sunset or
right.
something like that. They were describing that. I mean, it's extraordinary, really. But I mean, when you realize this whole thing is a magnificent clock that the Father created, and He said He put the sun and moon and stars up there to be for signs for seasons, and time.
Yes.
That's how we reckon these things. And I mean, man, when I read the course of the heavenly. Oh man, that's it. We're out of time.
Yes.
Oh man,
crazy, so fast.
Pick
All
up
right,
next
brother.
week.
Next week. Yep. God bless all. Good night.
Good night, everybody.